Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Mark O Brien about 61st Street, which is premiering soon on AMC. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks, man. I love that boom, that energy. Let's get into this.
Well, you know, the show's coming up pretty soon. If we're not excited, I don't know what we're doing here, right?
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, you know, it's tough. We don't want to give too much away when we do interviews like this. You know what I mean? But like, people see the trailers. I mean, this show like hits very hard, and like time's not going to be wasted at all. Like, what's that like going on a show where it's just kind of like, all right, this is what we're doing right out the gate, like nonstop? What's that like for you?
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like what I look for in material. It's like something that hits you in the face with something, as opposed to like, you know, subtlety and nuance is all good as long as the story overall is hitting you hard. And that's what's great about 61st Street. It's like, it hit me hard. Like what you said, like the first episode, you're like, oh my God, like what would I do? And how does everyone gonna handle this? Like, it just get into it. I like that as a watcher, as a film lover, as a TV lover. I like to like get right into it right away and know what the stakes are. And then they grow and they grow and they grow. And this show had that in spades, man. It's like, and it continues like that. Like the whole 2 seasons, it's like really just intense, and it doesn't let up, and you know, keeps you want to keep watching. I mean, that's why we watch TV.
Well, I had a chance to watch most of it. You know, it's on AMC. It's coming week to week and everything. But that first episode is like a movie.
Yeah. It's a lot, I think, and like there's a pulse through that whole first episode. You're just like, my God, like something's gonna happen. You know, something's gonna happen.
But it's difficult to do that, right? Because like it's a show, like the first episode of a show, I always feel like it's the hardest thing, because it's like that's the first introduction to these characters. It's the first introduction to the storylines. This one covers a lot of bases right away, though. Like we kind of know everyone's kind of situation right out the gate, which I think is amazing too.
Well, it's tough, right? Because every time a show in its first episode, you're trying to establish everyone. You're trying to like meet this character. Here's this character. Here's what they're doing. And what this one's doing, it kind of just naturally picks up in their lives, which is really nice. It's like you kind of just fall into it right away, because it's a normal day for a lot of these people. Yeah. And then but you can, there's this feeling underneath, and it's really hard to achieve that in directing and in writing, to achieve this feeling that something's going to happen. You feel this energy that something's going to happen and it's going to change everybody's lives. And they did that in such a nice way it's really rare. So I think that's why it hooks you so quickly, because it feels real, but there's an incident that's going to go down.
And we're going to get to your directorial debut with The Righteous as well, but like more questions about this show specifically. Your character too, it's a little bit of a slow burn, Mark, where like with your character, where we, you know, in the beginning of the episode, we don't really see your character as much, and then it's like, boom, you know what I mean? This is kind of the situation and everything. What's it like seeing that growth just in like 1 episode or 2 episodes? Like, what is it like seeing that on script and then seeing it kind of on screen, specifically with your character?
Well, it was really refreshing, actually, because normally it's like, you know, you kind of start out with characters and you show what their life is like for a long time. Yep. And then when something happens, you see the difference. With this one, it's kind of like, boom, something happens to him right away. Like you said, like he's not there, then all of a sudden he's there, and now he's a part of this thing. And the way it grows over the 2 seasons is wild. And in the first season too, like you'll see from episode 1 through episode 8, it's like the amount of things that happen and this guy has to confront and deal with is very intense. But it was cool to do that, because I didn't get to know the character before the inciting incident of the show. Yeah. So, but we didn't need that. That's not what it's about. Yeah. That's not what it's about at all. So I was kind of doing a bit of backwards work of like, what was he like before this happened? Because on screen, we don't really see that much.
No, absolutely.
And I actually love doing that, because it's way more fascinating to pick up a character when a major event happens rather than before and just going through the day-to-day lives, because that's kind of mundane and not super interesting. However, like once this thing happens, he actually becomes who he is.
Oh,
he
100%.
realizes who he is more than ever once that happens.
And the thing is, like, emotions are so high, like right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We kept saying the cast, we were really close. The cast was very, very tight. And we always were like, man, no smiles on 61st Street. Like, it was just like,
I'm just letting
because
you know,
the stakes are so high.
For my viewers too, like, it's an amazing show. It's very, very tough subject matter. Like, there are moments in this show that are like very hard to watch.
And it goes down, and that's what I like about Peter Moffat's work, the creator. He doesn't pull any punches. It's like he's going for something. And if you ever meet Peter, I mean, Peter's great. He created the original Night Of, and he created Your Honor, and all these great British shows, Criminal Justice, and all kinds of stuff like that. And what he does, he's a very passionate guy too. So when you meet him, you get how he writes these very intense things because he's very passionate about what he believes in.
The
and
Night Of was so good.
It's amazing. You know what I mean? And like. Yeah. He wants to make statements, and he does that. So that passion comes through in the script, which is really cool. He does something I'd never really seen before, that he kind of almost like a play, like he almost editorializes, almost like a novel, I should say, within the stage direction. Yeah. So it gives you, it's written almost like a novel, and the show I think unfolds very novelesque in that way.
Oh, absolutely. You know, obviously when you do interviews for all your projects, there's always like the focal points. Like we're here like talking about 61st Street and everything, but you've worked on so many like awesome projects. Do you have to be kind of on your toes sometimes when you do interviews because so many different projects could be brought up? Like, have you ever thought about that?
I haven't, but now that you mention it,
well, no, Blue Bayou, Republic of Doyle, Halt to Catch Fire, City on the Hill, Ready or Not, like it's a lot.
Look, I've been, now that you mention it, you're making me feel pretty good about myself. Thank you. Can you follow me around every day and speak that into my ear?
Ready or Not is like one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And if you haven't seen it, watch it.
I'm in it. I didn't write or direct it. I can say that too. I think it's phenomenal. But you know what? I've been lucky to work on things I like, but it's also being certain. You have to be certain as an artist of like the things you want to do. And I've never just done a job to do a job ever. And I've needed to. So I think like maybe when you're starting out, you're just trying to get your feet wet. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'm really proud of. And it's kind of stuff, I kind of have a rule that I'll act in something I would like to watch myself.
100%.
And that's what it comes down to.
Your directorial debut with The Righteous, which is a really cool film. I'm just curious about that a little bit. Was that like super, super new to you directing, or because you've worked on all the projects we talked about, you're around directors all the time, you could pick their brain and everything. Did it feel like super fresh directing, or did you have a little bit of familiarity? Because it was your directorial debut. That's why I'm asking.
It was, yeah, but I've made a lot of short films and I directed some TV. Republic of Doyle, I directed an episode of that. And I wanted to be a filmmaker before I wanted to be an actor. So I guess it came as natural as it could. It doesn't mean I'm the greatest filmmaker of all time, but it felt natural for me. Mm-hmm. And I always think in directing terms, and that's just kind of the way my mind kind of goes. And I think it really comes down to like, I've been nervous before talking about scripts I've had that I've written. And I think it's probably because I wasn't confident in telling the story, or I wasn't sure what the story was. But with The Righteous, I knew what the story was. I really knew what I was going to do with it. And I was ready. And I think like for all filmmakers, it's like, there's a lot of people I know they weren't ready when they made their first film. And I was lucky that I was rejected so much up until that time, that by the time I made The Righteous, I was like, I'm very ready to do this. And I think every actor should have some experience in directing. I think every director should have some experience in acting. So so having that acting experience really, I felt helped me, made me comfortable at least.
It's so interesting because I feel like you kind of have to these days kind of wear many hats. And I think the thing too that I find very interesting, and like with me, like being, you know, a content creator and having my own outlet and everything, like I'm, you know, doing the interviews, I'm writing articles, I'm doing the editing. And you know what? There's some things, Mark, that I'm better and more comfortable with than others. Like I like doing interviews more than editing or anything. But I feel like even like you kind of have to do it. And even if you're not like that comfortable doing it, you kind of have to like force yourself. You know what I mean?
You have to. Yeah. Because it's part of the job. Even if you're not like what you were just saying for yourself, it's like, even if you're not physically required to do it all the time, but then when you're doing the other aspect of your job, when you can have that in mind, it helps so much. Like a bad example of it, if you understand producing, and you're also a writer, but you know more about writing than producing, and you're like, I want to write this scene, and you know the helicopter comes in. The producer part of you is like, do I need a helicopter? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's a bad example of it, but you see what I mean? It's like, thinking about those other aspects of how am I actually going to do that and do that instead of writing the scene with 200 extras. Do I need that many? Maybe you need more. So because you've been there on the day before, and I think all those little things come to play when you have that experience being on set and you understand the other person's job of what they're doing. And sometimes if you point your inspiration or thought you have at the wrong person, then it gets muddled. So it's like you kind of need to know it. If you have that much passion for it, you should know everything about it. And that's the way I've gone about my career.
No, absolutely. You know, we're talking about it right now, like Ready or Not. I mean, that was so good. And I might be a little bit biased too, because that movie is literally for horror. Like, I'm a big horror fan, but my favorite horror movie is a genre that I created. Well, not created, but like Dinner Party Gone Wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those movies. There's a movie called The Invitation I loved, Ready or Not. There's a movie called You're Next. They're
the
literally
Celebration, the Thomas Vinterberg movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's like my go-to. I just love that. I love everyone gets together for food, and it's like, oh my God.
Because you know why? It's universal.
Yeah.
We've all had those awkward meals. We've had awkward dates. We've had terrible dinners with our family. We're like, oh my God, we all want to kill each other. Like, you take a universal setting and then you do something extraordinary with it, right? Like Ready or Not is like, oh, we all know what it's like to introduce someone to the in-laws or introduce a friend even to the in-laws or whatever it is. We've been brought in situations where we feel foreign. So it's like, what's the worst thing about being brought into a foreign situation? Oh, they all want to kill me. It's like an exaggeration of how you kind of feel anyway. You're like, everyone's judging me. And for her, it's like, they're not judging me. They're going to kill me.
And I just want to also say, too, that we've interviewed her for Letterkenny. Like, how good is Melanie Scrofano in that movie?
Oh, she's so good.
Like,
she's so good. When she does the coke in front of the mirror. And then, like,
it's like comic relief, but it's like, am I supposed to laugh at this? Like, are they crazy? You know what I mean?
Well, because she's so good. That's so tough to pull off, too. Like, that tone. And she's so good. I mean, that whole we were so tight. Christian Grone, too.
That's a good cast.
It's a really good cast, and we were all tight. And well, Henry Czerny was in The Righteous too, because I was so obsessed with him. It's like, you got to go do my movie,
right? Absolutely. Yeah. But it's so cool, and there's so much going on. And you know, just a general question that I think you can link to 61st Street or The Righteous as well, Mark. I mean, Mark O'Brien, you're a storyteller. That's what you do, basically. You know what I mean? Whether it's acting, directing, writing, it's storytelling. What excites Mark O'Brien about storytelling specifically?
Surprises. I love seeing something that I didn't see coming that shocks me. I was just
you were ready for that question. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was almost like we did a preview, which we did not. But it's just, I think about it. It was a great question because I think about it so much, and when I'm writing, I like to be shocked. I like to be surprised and I don't necessarily like. I've become a horror fan recently, and I don't like gore for gore's sake. But if it shocks you and it makes sense for the story, I'm all in. And you know, my wife hadn't seen Nightmare Alley yet, and I was rewatching it with her last night. And she was like, it was so good. And I'm not even like, you know, Del Toro I love, but not all of them are just all of his movies are great. They're so well made. But something about Nightmare Alley that just, to me, it's leaps and bounds above the rest. And the others are so good too, but it's just amazing because, and my wife's like, I'm not sure if I like it. I was like, that's why it's so good, because you don't know what's going to happen. No one knows where this movie's going. I didn't watch the original intentionally because I heard Del Toro was doing a remake. And I was just like, I have no idea. There's a surprise every 10 minutes in that. You're like, oh, now they're done with this. Or, and now they're here. Like, but it's so confident. And so I love that when I'm reading a script, when I'm watching something that shocks me or surprises me, because you kind of can't stop thinking about it. Then it's that part in Hereditary when she hits off the pole. You know what I'm talking about, when she's decapitated. Like, when that happens, you're like, oh my God, there's no way you can turn that movie off. But there's no
surprises at all in Ready or Not, let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. Well, that premise is a surprise. You're like, how do I turn this off now?
That was the most sarcastic thing of all time, because if you watch that movie, that literally is like the biggest surprise of all time.
Yeah, and how it ends, you're like, oh my God. Like, that's I always loved surprise endings when I was younger. I loved surprise endings because I was a sucker for them. The movie could be like a piece of shit, and then I was just like, whoa, but at the end, there's the guy. And I always loved that. So yeah, like, surprises that's my jam.
There is a movie that it was a German it was originally a German film, and they remade it with like Tim Roth and Naomi Watts. Have you seen Funny Games or have heard of Funny Games? Have you heard of that?
Forget about it. Michael Haneke. He's like my favorite filmmaker.
Okay. The Rewind Do you know
Crazy.
Like that.
Crazy.
Like, that I like.
And when he flies up against the wall and he comes back, like that kind of stuff, you're like, what? What
Okay,
did
yeah,
I just see?
exactly. Yeah, so the rewind is like the most insane thing that messed with my head for a week.
Yeah, me too. And Michael Haneke, he's one of the biggest inspirations for The Righteous, really, is because he plays with you. Did you ever see Cachet? His Cachet. So I mean, the ending of that, you think about for weeks. You can't stop. I still think about it. I've seen it 12 times, and I haven't even watched it in 3 or 4 years. Like that kind of stuff is so juicy. But Funny Games is great. You're like, did I just see that?
And that movie too is like the uncomfortable, like that whole movie from beginning to end. You're just so uncomfortable, and that's like a horror movie. You know what I mean?
Or even like Hurt Locker, when Guy Pearce at the beginning.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Guy Pearce, cool, and then you're like, oh, well, he's dead. All right, like it sucks you in. It just draws you into the movie. I love that stuff. I'm a sucker for it. Like the movie doesn't even need to be good. Just shock me.
No, absolutely. Before we wrap up quickly, 61st Street, April 10th. It's going to be premiering on AMC. People are going to be able to see it when it's out. What are you hoping they get out of it, takeaway wise, when they get to watch 61st Street, Mark?
Well, 61st Street is like, it's such a charged show, like about a lot of what's happening in America right now and around the world.
Yeah.
And honestly, in all seriousness, like I love the drama of the show. I love the narrative. I love the people involved, all the actors and everything. But it's really important. It's an important show.
Yes.
And it's kind of like how I felt about Blue Bayou. I was like, it's great to go do good work and it's dramatic and it's fun and all that kind of stuff. But when you're actually doing something that's important, like for society and for people to watch and for people to see these kinds of stories and actually look at it, and you're forced to look at it, and you look at it a bit harder when you're at home. And I think it's different than looking at it than you look at it on the news, because we get desensitized to the news. But a show, you get hooked in, you want to watch it every week and you keep going back for more, you binge it or whatever, it becomes a bit more real, even though it's unreal, which is a funny kind of backwards kind of conundrum thing. But I hope people just take a look at this and see like where people are coming from. Try and be someone else's shoes for once. I mean, the last few years in North America in general, it's like in the world it's so divisive and everyone's against one another. Just look at someone else's position. And that's what I like about the show. It creates, a lot of like, not the writers, but the show, there's all these sides. Yeah. But there's also like a gray area in between. And I just think doing something that matters, that even in 10 years can change someone's point of view, is the most powerful thing art can do. And that's why I'm so proud of 61st Street. And I jumped at being a part of it because of those reasons.
That's such a great answer. And like I said, because I love this show. It's one of the best shows out there. But like you said, it's one of the most important shows. So people need to watch it on AMC. And you said Blue Bayou, Justin Chon, I just interviewed him for Pachinko. So good.
Oh, great. So the best guy in the world. Yeah,
so good. Mark, thank you so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Thanks, man. You too. I really enjoyed this. Yeah. I love that you love Funny Games. That's amazing.
Dude, I'm a big horror fan. We could talk. There's lists. I'm sure there's some films that you I'm sure there's films that you've seen that I haven't, and vice versa, man. It was like, I'm sure there's like, we could probably come up with like 250 horror movies.
At least, I'm sure.
Absolutely. AMC, 61st Street, coming out soon. They could check that out. And where can people follow you on social media to keep update with everything?
I'm at Mark O'Brien Faux Real on Instagram and Mark O'Brien NL on Twitter. The NL is from Newfoundland, where I'm very proud to be from.
Oh, absolutely. Canada. Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Mark O'Brien and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.